All right, guys, we are back, and today what we're going to focus on is creating our very own DNS server on our Kali Linux machine. We are running Kali Linux on a virtual box, which is on top of another OS. Okay, mind you, guys, please, if you're planning to follow along, if you want to learn some things, if you want to dabble into some things, you have to have VirtualBox and you have to have Kali Linux. That is honestly a must, guys. Okay, that is a must. Just like you put your pants on every single day and you go outside. Okay, you as an IT professional should have some type of virtualization with different OSs to be tinkering with things, to be experimenting with things. That way you can be a cut above the rest. Okay, we did mention the material with regards to our core objectives on our 1101 on the CompTIA A plus with regards to 2.6. Okay, but you want to be a cut above the rest, guys. You don't just want to memorize definitions. You want to go ahead, roll up your sleeves, get behind the keyboard, get behind the screen, start typing some things and start creating some cool things. That's one of the things that I didn't take as much advantage of in the previous year. And that tells me, hey, are you going to continue in the same path and just try to memorize definitions? Or are you going to get behind a keyboard and start making things happen? You know, I'm not perfect. I don't plan to be perfect. But I do like to go ahead and dabble. So nonetheless, why would we want to create a DNS server anyways? Okay, so for those of you who don't know, DNS server is domain name system. It is on works on port 53. Okay, TCP and UDP. It goes ahead and it takes an IP address and translates it to a name that we can remember, like Google, like www.google.com. Okay, it translates the name of a website, the domain name, right? Ever heard of GoDaddy.com? Like, go ahead, get your website, get your domain. It takes that name, okay, www.whatever.com, and it turns it into an IP address so the computer, the hardware, the networking knows where to send the information, so on and so forth. Okay, not only does it do that, but DNS also has a lot to do with what would be email. Okay, if you're having internet connectivity issues, if you're having email issues, DNS is probably something you might want to be looking at. Okay, nonetheless, what we're going to do is quick little project. Okay, so script for Unbound. Okay, guys, you guys are lucky. Okay, for those of you guys who think, hey, ChatGPT is going to take over the world, and ChatGPT or Gemini, they're going to do the jobs for us. Listen, I went to ChatGPT. I went to Gemini. And I asked them multiple times. The very first script, the very first instructions that they gave me was not good, and I can honestly say that. I almost got in the fight with ChatGPT and Gemini. I was just like, dude, I'm following your instructions and your instructions are not working. Did you check these instructions? So can I say that my script is better than ChatGPT and Gemini? I'm not going to say that. What I am going to say is that, hey, I'm I'm going to lead you along with my particular script. I'm going to show you and tell you what that particular script means to the best of my ability. I highly recommend that you do it. If there's something that I missed, if there's something that you know, go ahead, let us know. Put it in the comments down below. All right. So the very first thing is we're on our Kali Linux machine. I went ahead and I opened up these notes. I'll make sure to put that down on the description below. Okay. And then now what I did was I went ahead and I opened up a terminal, okay, a command prompt. The very first thing I'm going to do is, we're going to do sudo apt update, okay. And the reason why you want to go ahead and do that is because you want to have the latest updates with regards to your system, so there isn't any conflicts, so to speak, and everything's just up to date. So it's almost like doing like a quick little Windows update just to make sure, hey, let's get everything up to date. That way you know exactly what's going on, computer. The next thing is the sudo apt upgrade. What's the difference between the upgrade and the update? To be honest with you, I would have to look that up. All I know is that I like to do the update, like to do the upgrade, so on and so forth. That would be a good question. If you guys know the answer to that, you can put that down in the comments below. I read the comments, so it does help. But nonetheless, all I know is that we want to get our system up to date. Okay, and sometimes that can be an issue both ways, vice versa, right? Compatibility issues. Okay, so line one executed. Okay, line two executed. Now we're going to go ahead and execute line 3. Something like this, guys, I generally I don't pay too much attention to. I just run it, and then if it doesn't work, I look at it from why is the app not working. And let's just install the app and we'll move forward. Sudo apt install Unbound. Okay, so Unbound is technically the application that we're going to go ahead and install. Okay, Unbound is the application we're going to go ahead and install. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I hate when they do this when they're on the tutorial. It's just like, yeah, you did it before. Yeah, I did it before to make sure it works. And try to keep everything concise. So I already installed it. I kind of technically already configured it. So make sure you pay extra close attention moving forward. That way we don't have any hiccups. Okay. And I'll make sure to explain it as best as I can. Okay. Sudo apt install Unbound. Unbound is the application that is going to replicate the DNS server. So this is literally the software, so to speak, that's going to act as our DNS server in our local machine. So we were going to want to go ahead and install that on yours. It might take a minute or two. Okay. You can pause the video, what have you. I technically already had it installed. That's why it was so quick to do. Okay. But you're probably going to see like, 20%, 30%, 40%, and 90% installed. And then when you come back to this, let's go ahead and move from there. So line 1, 2, 3, all executed. Now we're going to focus on line 5. Line 5, sudo nano. Okay. So looking at this, sudo nano /etc /unbound /unbound dot config. Okay, so boom. For some of you guys, you are literally just gonna see you're literally just gonna probably see this. Okay, this, notice here, this is our configuration. Okay, more than likely you're not going to see this, but I have it written down for you guys right here. From code 8 to code 15, you're going to want to copy and paste. I do have an extra few lines. This is for testing purposes. This right here will enable us to actually, this is where it gets fun. Okay, so there's a lot of things going on here. Let's slow it down. When I ran line code 5, sudo nano /etc unbound /unbound.config, I'm telling Kali Linux, get me into your configuration file. Now, your configuration file is going to be different from my configuration file, especially if you just did a brand new install. Okay, you're going to probably see something along these lines here. You might even see, more than likely, when I saw this first, more than likely, you saw this. Okay, so oops, let me go here. More than likely you saw this. Okay, I don't necessarily know exactly what that line of code means. If you know what it means, you can go ahead and let me know. But look, all I know is this: it runs the code, it's a comment. Okay, it runs the code, it's a comment. It runs the code, it's a comment. So I went ahead, I comment that out. I started adding my own configuration file, which once again was line 8 to line 15. And let's go through this really quick. Okay, you can actually see that I actually went ahead and I actually put a little bit more. Let's actually run it through here. So if I click F11, makes it bigger. So this is the configuration file that I had. Okay, and this is where a lot of people were forwarding the address or the information to the DNS server. Ours should technically be different. So server verbosity is basically telling you, hey, at what sensitivity do you want to log files? Okay, I believe 0 is no, like less sensitive, sensitive, and like 3 or 2 is more sensitive. So that's what verbosity means. It's just like, hey, when we log these files, how sensitive do you want it to be? And that just depends on your administrator. That just depends on your situation. Interface 0.0.0.0. Right now, we're technically telling it, hey, any interface can go ahead and use this system. Any interface can go ahead and use this system. Okay, and then the very next thing is literally access control. Only 127.0.0.1/8 is allowed. Okay, it's kind of like saying, hey, everyone's invited to the party. Only if you're wearing a blue shirt, and only if you're wearing white sneakers. Okay, so this access control is literally saying, hey, it's telling it, hey, only these IP addresses are allowed to go ahead and use this, use Unbound. Okay. Not sure exactly why they set it up like that, but that's just the framework, so to speak. Do not query localhost. I put no. Honestly, I need to review exactly what that means. I don't want to make things up. So I don't know exactly what that means off the top of my head. I have to look that up. Hide identity. Yes. Hide version. Yes. This is what makes our particular video, this is what makes Unbound its weight worth in gold. Okay. Because you're hiding your identity out, ideally, theoretically, you're hiding your identity when making requests to domains. When the DNS server out in Google, the 8.8.8.8, gets a request, it logs that information. And with that information, that metadata, it can sell that information. It can say, hey, you know what? They've been looking a lot at Amazon, and they've also been Google searching soccer balls. I think this guy might want to go ahead and buy a soccer ball. Let's go ahead and let these people who are advertising for soccer balls, let them know that this particular IP address, this particular location is looking for that. Okay. We want to stop that, right? We don't want people to go ahead and know what we're searching, because we believe it's our privacy. It's our we have we can have better privacy, better security, and we can go ahead and the magic of this, we're literally configuring the file so we can go ahead and have more control. So that's exactly what that line 8 through 15 meant. It gives you a better idea. And oops. Okay. So now let's go to here. Let's go back. All right. So we ran that. Okay. What you're going to go ahead and do is make sure that yours looks kind of like mine. That way you can have the same result. I'm going to go ahead, control. Okay. That's what that little what that caret means. I'm going to hit control, exit, yes, so modify, and then enter. Boom, voila. So we've executed, we're all the way up to line 18. Okay, we're going to go to line 18, sudo system ctl enable. So now we installed the application, we configured the application. Now what we're going to want to go ahead and do is enable the application. So we go ahead, we enable the application. Let's go ahead and make sure it does that. And now, perfect. So you shouldn't have any issues so far. If so, you got to go back, okay? Because just following this line, okay, either you have a typo on your configuration file, you didn't save your configuration file correctly, right? You should be good to go. Everything should be nice and clean, just like on my it is on my end. If you're having issues now, you have to go back, look at your configuration file, make sure there isn't a typo. On mine, I put do not query, and I forgot this dash. I also forgot a semicolon. So sometimes we type really fast and what have you, but copy and paste. So now let's execute line code 19, sudo system ctl status. Okay, so now we're going ahead and we're going to check the status of our Unbound. And notice here, I have nice, clean cut. Everything's beautiful. Looking at this, it's loaded. Yes. It's enabled. Yes. It's active. Yes. However, I had to do something before I got here. Okay. And I'm going to show you on your end. You probably have a yellow line right here on what would be one of these. Okay. So I'm going to go back. Okay. Because we want to make sure you have the same thing I have. Okay. I had an issue with this particular, and let me go ahead and replicate the issue really fast. So don't touch your screen, so to speak, because more than likely I know that you're going to have this issue, because I had it, and this is what was a headache and a half for quite some time. And okay, so I'm going to go back to sudo nano etc/default/unbound. Okay, I had to add this line of code. If you run command 24, more than likely this configuration is blank. Okay, and I can show it to you. Remember that trick that we did? If you just put a colon, a pound sign. Okay, all I did was put a pound sign, and then I'm gonna go ahead and restart it. Let's go ahead, restart it. Oops, restart it, and then we're gonna check the status. Now, notice here, more than likely, this is what you saw initially. Okay. If you were to check the status after going ahead and executing it, more than likely you saw this. So in order to get rid of that, let's go back. We're going to go to that configuration file. Remember, it was sudo nano. When it tells you sudo nano, it lets you know you're configuring applications and whatnot. And now you just go to the file system, etc /default /unbound. And then going ahead, and it's going to be capital DAEMON underscore OPTS equals quotes. Okay. So now I'm going to save that. Yes. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to restart it just in case. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the status. And now notice that line of code I no longer have. Okay. That was one of the biggest issues that I had to go ahead and overcome. Didn't really figure out what it was. That and a whole plethora of other things, because my configuration file was a lot longer than it is now. So I had to really simplify it to make it work for me. So nonetheless, we are technically good right now. And here comes the magic. Okay, guys. Oops. I keep doing that. Okay, here comes the magic. I had it. Okay, so we're here, saved and exit. Okay, so if I run dig, so I'm going to run dig google.com at 127.0.0.1. If you run dig, okay, you should technically get something like this. That lets you know, hey, it's working, everything's good, there's no errors. If you're saying, hey, if you go back to your status, okay, if you go back to your status and you see red lines and you see yellow lines or things of that nature, when it comes to present disabled, as far as I know, you don't have to worry about that. That's not a big deal. You can ignore that. But you should see something like this when you run status. If you're getting into errors like red lines or yellow lines, you have to Google those, ChatGPT those, Gemini those, go through it. That way you can fix it. But if you follow it along, you should actually be in business and everything should be nice and clear. So let's go back, and now here's the other thing. If you leave it just like this, you're not doing you're halfway there. Okay? The chicken is half baked, baby. If you leave it just like this, what you have to do is, okay, you have to follow line code 30. We're not completely finished. So let's go to line code 30. This is check to see if inbound is being used. Okay, so you're gonna go to cat, and notice I already had it typed here, /etc /resolve.config. So once we get here, notice that I have a couple things. Okay, more than likely you didn't see. More than likely you don't see the name server 127.0.0.1. Remember, that's the IP address of your local machine. I typed that in. Okay, I went ahead and typed that in. What I initially had was just the name server 192.168.1.1, which that was acting as my DNS server. Okay, and then now you just see the IPv version 6 address. So my 192.168.1.1 was acting as my DNS server, and that was by default. Now I'm telling it, okay, the way you would configure that file to say, hey, no longer use this DNS server. I want you to go ahead and use our local DNS Unbound server. Okay, so which kind of lets you know, hey, this is probably really important, because if we don't go ahead and configure it, we're still going to use the previous DNS server, which defeats the whole purpose of what we're trying to do, right? So there's definitely a lot of steps. Resolve.config. All right, let's go back. Command cannot be found. Okay, let's try that again. I'm gonna go. It should be sudo nano /etc /resolve dot config. Okay, perfect. So notice what I did on my end. Okay, I typed in the name server 127.0.0.1, which is it's just the loopback address. Okay, and then I went ahead and I typed in what would be I commented out the previous DNS server. Right? Remember, it reads it as a comment, it applies it as code. It reads it as a comment, it applies it as code. I want to get rid of these two, and I want to use this particular server. Okay, so let's go ahead. We're going to save, we're going to exit. Make sure your configuration file on what would be line 34 looks something like this that we have. You should be following us along. Okay, so that looks good. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to exit. We're going to say it. We should have saved it. Yes, perfect. Okay, we're going to go ahead and exit. We're going to run this line of code really quick. Sat chat r plus I. I think when I was going through this, that was literally telling us resolve okay. um it's something along the lines of like having it set as a setting or something. I would have to, you could probably do some research on that on your own, but that's one of the lines of code that I did have. Now what I want to do is if I go to diggoogle.com, it should work perfect. Okay, now let's have some fun. Okay, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go to Firefox, and I don't know how I'm doing with time, guys. My editor cuts off at 30 minutes. I don't know why. If you guys know any good video editing software that's free, uh, let me know. I mean, I've done okay so far with the videos, but it does give me a time limit, which I do not like. Okay, so now we're going back. All right, let's go to www.google.com. Okay, and boom, let's go to Google. Okay, and my system's really slow, guys. I do have some older hardware, but nonetheless, it's the hardware I have, and I work with what I got. So, come on, I hit enter. Search for me, please. Search for me, Firefox. Start your search. Okay, perfect. So you guys can see, hey, you know what? You went into Firefox, you typed in Google, it resolved it. It's a little slow and whatnot, but okay. Now we're gonna exit out of here. Now here's the magic. Okay, now we go to sudo. It was sudo nano. This was not the resolve. This was sudo nano. Forget what it was. That's why we have our notes. It's going to be line code 5. Sudo nano /etc /unbound /unbound .cof. All right. Boom. Now, remember when we initially went ahead and we coded out? Okay. We went ahead and commented out. Now we're going to go ahead and uncomment it. So now this line of code is live. Okay. We're going to exit. And this line of code, local dash zone, google.com static, local dash data, so on and so forth, that is basically telling us, hey, we're going to block this website. That's what the static essentially means. Okay. So we're going to save it. Yes. File it. We're going to do a quick little sudo system ctl restart unbound. So we want to actually go ahead and restart unbound so it can just take effect. And then let's go ahead. Let's make sure it's good. So sudo system ctl, what would be sudo system ctl? It was status unbound. And beautiful. Okay, so everything's looking good. Nice. Let's go ahead and let's go to the moment of truth. Now we're going to go back to Firefox. Okay, this ideally should have gone ahead and blocked. Now, I know what you're thinking. Hey, man, I could have just used the firewall. I could have just gone ahead and I could have used the virtual firewall and whatnot. But if you don't see the implications that I see, okay, one, remember what we learned from our CompTIA Security Plus. It is defense in depth, being able to have more than just one way to block things. Okay, going ahead and having layers. And at the same time, if you are a white hacker, you got to know, hey, are we being blocked because of the firewall? Are we being blocked because of the DNS? Hey, what happens if we do a pen test and start doing some DNS hijacking and we have a DNS configured with this particular information or what have you? Okay, so there's a lot of things going on here with just this particular lab, and there's a lot of vectors Okay, and a lot of tangents that we can go on. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and let's try it. And bam! We're having trouble finding that site. Look at that, guys. You did it. I did it. We both did it. Going ahead and going to Google, right? And let's just make sure that we are true. Let's go back to our sudo. Let's go back to our file. All right, let's go back to our file. It was here, right? So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to come back. And this is one of the ways that I've seen that a lot of people were starting to go ahead and block ads because they're literally blocking some of the websites that are notoriously known for going ahead and giving ads. Let's go back. We're going to go ahead and restart it. System, we're going to restart it. Let's leave it there. Okay, it should be good now. And let's go back to www.google.com. Oops. Google.com. Let's go here. Whoa. I am in the wrong place. What's going on here? www.google.com, please. Okay. There. And voila. Okay, so notice how we literally blocked our own Google website by going ahead and installing our very own DNS server. You guys can see the beauty in this. I think it's pretty cool. Obviously, it's outside the scope of CompTIA A+, but like I said, you want to get your hands dirty, guys. You want to start learning this and mastering this information, okay? And the more you do, the better you get. Like I said, this honestly took me some time. I fell flat on my face a couple of times, even with the help of AI, right? Even with the help of ChatGPT, even with the help of Gemini. I honestly feel like the code that I have is perhaps maybe not the best, but at least it's vetted, it's tried, it's true, it's tested, and it's something that you literally saw me go through. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. We could talk about it. Okay. Continue to study, continue to work. And yeah, we'll see you guys on the next one.